The gaming industry is a beast that's ever changing. From the days of arcades to having a console for your CDs and now PC where you can pretty much just download whatever is available, we've seen plenty of changes over time. And one of those changes, which is in a way a benefit, is subscriptions, right? Things like Game Pass, where you pay one fee and you have access to tons of games. But there's an issue that arises with that, and that's ownership over your games. Do you truly own the games that you are downloading and playing? That's a big question. And unfortunately, that's being challenged as of right now. And one of the perpetrators of this challenging on ownership of your games has come out in a exclusive interview basically saying you guys need to be comfortable about not owning your games. So the interview in question comes from gi.biz. They managed to get this exclusive interview with the director of subscriptions, Philippe Tremblay. Everybody's grabbing this, from PC Gamer to IGN, all over Twitter, all over Reddit. People are blowing up, particularly about one section, because the majority of this article is about Ubisoft Plus. And again, we're talking about Ubisoft one more time. Everybody is tired of Ubisoft. They keep coming up with new things to make people want to hate them. And this is just another cherry on top of this shit cake that everybody is eating right now. What part in particular is making people mad? Well, why don't I show you exactly what that part is? And we'll read it too, and so you can see what this argument is all about, and then we can break it down. One of the things we saw is that gamers are used to, a little bit like DVD, having and owning their games. That's the consumer shift that needs to happen. They got comfortable not owning their CD collection or DVD collection. That's a transformation that's been a bit slower to happen in games. As gamers grow comfortable in that aspect, you don't lose your progress. If you resume your game at another time, your progress file is still there. That's not been deleted. You don't lose what you've built in the game or your engagement with the game. So it's about feeling comfortable with not owning your game. I still have 2 boxes of DVDs. I definitely understand the gamer perspective with that. But as people embrace that model, they will see that these games will exist, the service will continue, and you'll be able to access them when you feel like it. That's reassuring. First off, we're going to start with this argument, right? And then we'll go into a bit of the lies. Because that last part right there was very off. Because especially as of recent with Ubisoft in particular. So, when it comes to CDs and DVDs, it's a bit of a different beast compared to games. CDs and DVDs, particularly when it comes to music and movies. That's our big thing that we're trying to talk about here. Things like Netflix, things like Hulu, things like Spotify, things like Apple Music, where you have access to all these things. And they may change over time, whether if Netflix removes The Office, right? And everybody got upset when they were removing The Office from Netflix. Or when, let's say, an artist on Spotify doesn't want their music to be on there anymore and they prefer to go to Tidal or put it on Apple Music instead. Right now you have to change your service because that music is gone. What's the best way to remedy you losing something from a subscription in that sense? Buy a physical copy, right? You buy a physical copy of the album that you enjoy, the movie that you like watching. How often are people doing that? A lot of people are starting to get comfortable with these services. And if you think that that's not true, well, look back at when Netflix decided to stop sharing your passwords with everybody. What ended up happening? Even though a big decrease did happen of a number of subscriptions because people did not like that, a huge resurgence came of it too. So clearly people do enjoy these services and use them. But how people enjoy music and movies is different than games, right? Gamers are a different breed in a way, right? Whether if you want to say that that's a good thing or not is up to you. But gamers are different than people who enjoy movies. Gamers are different than people who enjoy music. Why is it slower in games? Because when it comes to a game, people enjoy the interactiveness, the story, the everything that comes with this copy of a game. And it's been challenged before, right? Because now that games are moving more towards digital copies rather than physical copies, people feel like no longer at ease anymore about whether if their game is going to survive or not. Because even though they have this digital copy, it could all of a sudden disappear. And then this is where we come in with that last statement that he said about these games will still exist and the service will continue. The biggest one is The Crew. And if you've kept up with anything that Ubisoft has been doing, The Crew, which is a racing game that is under Ubisoft's umbrella, is shutting down its servers in the coming months. And it's a terrible thing in the sense of the gaming community, because it's reflectant of how you don't own your games, and it should be a problem as to why you don't own your games, because people who own this game will no longer be able to play it, even though they own a digital version, or maybe they own a physical copy of this game, because this game is an online only game. You have to be connected to the internet. The game has to be connected to a server to be able to utilize all the stuff that the game has to provide. So this is a blatant lie. This is just a blatant falsehood coming from the director of subscription, saying that your game is reassured. Like, you have a save file on your computer. Like, even though you might not own the game is still there, right? So that way, if it's gone and you want to bring it back, or it comes back, you can resume playing. That's not true. They're literally challenging this as we speak. And once The Crew is gone, they're going to be forced to buy either The Crew 2 or a different racing game that's available. And whether if you think that just buy The Crew 2, who cares that The Crew is shutting down its servers, right? There's clearly a new game out. Why don't you just buy the new game? You're not understanding the thing that is fundamental about owning a game. When 343 shut down the multiplayer servers and all their services for all the Halo games for the 360, did they shut down access to playing those games by whatever means you want? No, because it's a physical copy that is independent from the internet. When you play Halo 3 on the 360, it's not going to immediately tell you, hey, you need to connect to Xbox Live, because the only way you can play Halo 3 is through Xbox Live. Oh, you don't have Xbox Live? I'm sorry, then you can't play the game. That's not how those games worked in the past. And that's not how games should work today. And unfortunately, it's like Apple's thing where they got sued in the past for essentially forcing people to upgrade their phones because they would fill their phones up with bloatware, so that way it slowed them down and they had to go to a new version. If you're trying to force people to play a new game rather than stick with the old one, then you as a company have a problem, because you're just trying to push people away. And if it pushes people towards it, then those people have a problem with owning their games, right? They're submitted to their gaming overlords and will just buy whatever it is, right? And this is perpetuating the problem. But it's also, at least in their eyes, a remedy to the issue, right? Because now they talk about streaming, and this is a bit different, right? And we're not talking about streaming in terms of like streaming to Twitch or streaming to YouTube. We're talking about things like Stadia. Remember Stadia?
Stadia? What? What Stadia? Stadia is only the newest, most logic-defying, mind-bending, absurd gaming platform on Earth. Forget boxes, forget consoles, just your games, your screens, and electric air. And this electric air is Stadia.
The gaming company that Google tried making and it just completely flopped because of the issues that it had. Yeah, Ubisoft wants to do that. And whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. I haven't tried anything. I don't know if it's public on Ubisoft Plus to stream games, but from what we've seen with Stadia is that in theory, it's great, right? You don't have to download your game. You can just play the game that you want to play right out the gate. But in practice, it was terrible. There was tons of lag, there was tons of connectivity issues. It was not a great service because they just couldn't get it to work properly. And Ubisoft wants to do the same thing. And he even says himself, like, oh, like before I play a game or download a game that I want to play that's been published, I stream it for a couple of minutes. What's the point in streaming it for a couple of minutes? What? Why do you stream for a couple of minutes? You can't get satisfied from a game from a couple of minutes. Come on. Like, even Steam's refund policy allows you to play for 2 hours. What are you going to get out of a couple of minutes of streaming a video game? A loading screen? Regardless. He even makes an even dumber argument that says, like, streaming is also a thing that works really well with subscriptions. So you pay when you need as opposed to paying all the time. Are you paying for the individual games that you're trying to stream to? Is that what you're trying to say here? Because you have to pay for the subscription to play whatever games you want. And then where's this paying all the time thing? Because if I'm paying to play a game, I'm paying to play the entirety of that game with no issues. And if I do have a problem with it, I just refund it. Or if you want to bypass that altogether and make something for free, make a demo that people can download, and if they like playing the demo, then they can purchase the game outright and then have access to the entire thing. What's this, oh, you pay for when you need, not when you pay every single time? Pay for when you need what? When you need the subscription service? Then what's the point in even getting the subscription service if I can just pay the game outright? And then I have access to whatever game that I absolutely want to get. It's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous argument. In the end, gamers should not be succumbing to the idea of not owning their games. When you purchase an item, you are entitled to that item. You should own that item, and games should not be an exception to this, and should not be compared to the subscription services for movies and music, because in the end, games are fundamentally different. Unlike movies and music, games can be modified. They can be altered. They can be physically changed. You can go inside the code and add things to it or remove things from it. You can do whatever you want with the game so long as you're not violating any terms of service, or if you are not causing harm to other people, like an online multiplayer sense. And these services are essentially trying to do away with that, or sanction it, or restrict it in a way where gamers can no longer be able to do the things that we do right now with games. But this is going to probably lead us down a slope where maybe we might not have a future of being able to freely access all this stuff because we won't own them. I hope that in the future of gaming that we as gamers can come together and hopefully make these companies understand that games can't be treated like every other product that exists. When I have my game, I want to keep it. When I want to play the game, I want to be able to play it without any restrictions, without the need of having to be online, without needing to ensure that the company that is in charge of the game is keeping it alive, that it won't shut down randomly. And subscription services, though, allow us to have access to plenty of games, is not a solution to owning the rights to your copy of the game. And I think that's an issue, a huge issue when it comes to gaming. And when you have people like this guy, the director of subscriptions, talking about why people need to start getting comfortable about not owning their games, you're perpetuating a huge problem that I think needs to be solved in a better way that benefits both the companies and the gamers. But the best way to do it is to just give the rights to the game to the person, whoever owns them. But who knows whatever is going to happen in the future. I don't. But what I do know is this is pretty much just what I wanted to talk about today. If you like the video, give it a like. If you want to subscribe so you can see more stuff like this, subscribe to the channel. And whatever the case may be, I'm out of here. So I'll catch all of y'all later. Peace.